I'm thinking of all the things that have a dash in it. Like that song Dashing Through the Snow when we have it that time of year, which is between dash instead of the word between one end of the year and the other. So if we have a dash, and we tend in the 21st century, don't we tend to dash anyway, everywhere? Left, right, centre, upside down, around, till we're like headless chickens going nowhere. And that's kind of where we're starting. So let's see where we go. So while we're figuring out what that's going to happen, let's introduce ourselves, shall we? Jennifer, you're the most sensible one here today.
I don't know about all that, but I am Jennifer Jakowski. I am from Canada. I am a psychotherapist, a certified Canadian counselor, intuitive life coach. I bridge psychology and spirituality to support people through trauma, grief, life transitions, helping them deepen their understanding of self, reconnect with their inner truth. As we say, walking each other home.
Without dashing. Mary.
I'm Mary Corbett. I am a life small business coach in Cork in Ireland, but mainly on the internet. And most of my time is spent working with people who are mid-career, who've been made redundant, whose dash has been abruptly stopped. They now have to make changes in direction. So I have great fun with the dash.
Okay, Angela.
Hi, I'm Angela and I am a health kinesiologist and I work with people and their stuff, regardless of whatever that stuff is, whether they've got too much of it, too little of it, it's stuck in their head, it's on repeat or on a loop, whatever's going on for people, just to help calm all that noise down and help people move forward into whatever they want to move forward into.
And I'm Leslie Marsh, and I like mucking about with people's minds. So I like to make them slow down or go more quickly, depending on what's going on in their lives. And on occasions, I will actually help them to stop doing something that they really wanted to stop doing but never actually could. Which possibly means that sometimes I help with the dash. In that, and we all do here, in that we help other people to stop running about like headless chickens and actually go somewhere that they're meant to go in the first place. And I think that's kind of, we were all discussing earlier on, I'm going to come clean. We were all discussing earlier on, what were we talking about? What is this dash? What's going on with it? And actually, it is the dash that you get between the date of birth and the date of death. What do we do in the tween time? Angela doesn't like that one because she thinks it refers to children of a certain age. But being a kind of shamanistic person, the tween time is a magical place. It's not mundane, it's magical. And perhaps it should be treated more like that. What do we think, Jennifer?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of different, I guess, in-betweens that we can look at in life, and life itself is one of those in-betweens. When we look at the idea that our spirit is eternal, then this is one small little dash, if you will, in our greater existence. And yet we come into this life and we forget all of that. And we live as if this is all there is. It's not a dash, it is the entirety of the sentence. And you go, wait a minute, how do we take that step back and look at this from that bigger perspective? Because that's going to shift how we deal with issues, how we transition, how we move through this life.
A bit like Morse code on speed to a certain extent. Dot, 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 dash, dash, dash. Bye bye. Angela, what do you reckon?
It's and interestingly, what was jumping into my head as you were just talking about that is that the AI likes to put the dash in between words, like spaces on either end. And my brain was then starting to think about, does the space matter? And Leslie was talking about with gravestones in Ireland, you pay per character. Do you have to pay for the character of the spaces? I'm guessing not, because you're not actually having to chisel anything. But it was that ticking around in my head as to what that all means. And I love, Jennifer, that thought process of, it's just this iteration, it's just this period. And yes, while we're on this earth and we're going through whatever we're going through, it can feel as if, well, it's all about this time through. However, we do spend a lot of time wasting the time that we've got in that dash by not doing what we want to do, by feeling stuck and staying stuck. And Leslie, you were mentioning about people wanting to give things up and then not being able to. So they're stuck on that pattern, on that repeat. And it's just that trying to work out, well, what is the best thing for me, for my life, to actually leave a mark that's something that feels a bit more substantial than just a dash.
What do you think, Mary?
I'm really conscious of it because, because I do a lot of work with people who are made redundant. Their dash through life, their dash of their career, they suddenly have to stop and question. And that quietening, that pulling them back to see the bigger picture, what's the, re-asking themselves, for what's my purpose? How do I make the most of my life, my place in this world, whether it's my life in a cosmic universe of lives, or whether it's, well, this is the one I've got and I haven't gotten any other, so I better make the most of it as I stand here. But I think sometimes we often, when we think about, your life, and I suppose I'm very conscious. I was visiting my parents' gravestone, and how much of their lives was caught up in that dash, entire lives, having 6 children, bringing them, moving house a number of times, educating us, providing for us. We're just down to a dash. It just struck me as there's so much embedded in the dash that at the very least, we do all deserve to take some time out and look at, well, what would my dash actually look like?
It's
What
very true
is my
because
dash?
when you're writing notes and things like that and you're doing it in a hurry and you're sort of like saying something and then you go dash, and that dash is like, I'll think about that word later, or this means and everything else. But then what is and everything else? Because it hasn't happened yet. And it's an interesting kind of way of just feeling the weight and waiting for the idea to come as to where you want to put in that space. And yeah, the spaces between the dash, the spaces between spaces are where a lot of stuff happens. A lot of stuff happens in the spaces between the spaces, as we know, because when we go into people's minds and we start hypnotizing them and allowing them to access trance, for instance, that trance that they can access at any time of day, anywhere, and particularly when they're asleep, where they dream. I'm wondering if those are all parts of the dash, the dreams that we have. And yet we can't remember them in the morning, so when we're trying to write them down, there's a dash, 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 because I can't remember. Maybe it'll come up later. Is it just something that is the weight of waiting to see what's happening? I'm enjoying myself here because I'm playing with words. It's brilliant. So what do you think, Jennifer?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. And, when Angela brought up about the sentence piece, and as you were sharing, when we use the M dash in a sentence, and I love using it because it breaks up a thought and then gives us an opportunity to share something else, right? So we have like a regular sentence that we're sharing, but in the middle of it, there's something we want to kind of emphasize. And so we'll put it between those dashes. And you think about, again, that idea of this is our life, and our life is within itself a dash in our entire existence. But then within this lifetime, we have these moments where we're within those M dashes. And, I've talked about my own experiences where I've had, I'll say my past lives within this lifetime, where there's been such a transition or such a change that I'm not anything like that person before. And we have those moments throughout life. And so if we can look at them again from that light of it's a change, but that's not good, that's not bad, it's just part of the experience. And then how we choose to define ourselves within that experience is going to be what makes it a good experience or an unpleasant experience. But ultimately, Mary's talking about redundancies and things like that. And when we're in that space of, oh, I'm getting a dash here, I'm going to have to insert something different. All of the sudden, we're like, whew, okay, I get to choose now what I'm going to insert into this next phase or into this dash.
It's potential, isn't it? It's a big potential, Angela.
But I think that's the thing with life, isn't it? Everything's about potential. It's what you do with it. Are you going to take that potential, or are you just going to let it fly by? So yeah, it's
Yeah, I'm thinking of the word potential now. I'm going off on a tangent. There's a dash for you. I'm thinking about the word potential, and I'm thinking that because the beginning of the word is potent,
okay.
and when you split it that way, it actually makes it even more interesting. The potency of the dash, Mary, in redundancy is something quite
It's
powerful,
huge.
isn't it?
Oh, incredible. It has yes, it can be, but you have to be open to embrace it, which can be the challenge, and having the mindset to want to embrace the dash. And I think what's interesting is that I was my desk here, which fortunately you cannot see on the camera because it's messy. But I'm actually looking at some notes and the number of places where I use dashes when I'm writing my notes. And the dashes are always hiding this another set of thoughts that's separate from the first one, but it's related to the one that comes after. But there's something I don't quite know in the middle. I'm absolutely fascinated. I'm going to have to do a thorough analysis of how I use a dash in my note keeping because there's definitely a story there. But I think we do need to pay attention that when we are living and this being in a dash, it can look so insignificant on a piece of paper. It's just a dash. But in actual fact, it's our lives, it's our decisions, it's our potential to build, to grow, to develop, to do things. That I think this whole piece of actually we actually need to become much more conscious and aware of. We are living in the dash and it's not that we're living we're rather than as you mentioned earlier we're dashing everywhere. No, we are in the dash. It is we are it's inside. It embodies us. We embody the dash because that's our life. Living is the dash.
I just got a picture in my head there. Sorry, Angela, but I just got a picture in my head there of being in the car and the lane lines are dashes. Some of them are longer than others and some of them are shorter. But depending on how fast you're going, let's play a little bit relativity here with Einstein, it could become one solid line. Just the way that
But
we're
then
looking at it.
those one solid lines on British roads means you're not allowed to cross that road.
Yes, exactly. That's where I'm going because that
Yeah,
dash you can't cross, but the little dashes you can. So we have more potential
exactly.
with the small dashes, the in between ones, than we do with the lane lines that are saying you shall not cross. Don't do it. Big policeman with a baton standing at the other side, and it's a pity Willie's not here. We could have had a laugh with that. But there you go. What do you think? Because you were travelling recently on these
I
kind of
was.
lines.
I was. Thankfully, I went to many of those ones. It was a 2-lane road rather than the motorways for most of it. But yeah, there is that element of working out, and I'm trying not to take the analogy to too far because I'm starting to lose your analogy now with the
Oh,
road
I'm
marking.
going off on
But
one.
that's fine.
My tangents have gone
Yeah.
gentle.
So my ability to picture where your brain's going is thankfully skewed and switched off. But yeah, there is that element that it's how we look at it. And as I said, I mentioned the potential. I am curious when you were saying about potent. What about the ially? Is that something else at the end of the potentially? Anyway,
An ally. I ally myself to the potency.
I knew you would come up with
Oh,
something.
I
But
like
yeah,
that.
so you've got the potentials, you've then got the opportunities, you've then got the choices, and I do talk a lot about choices with what I do, is that everything we do in life is a choice. So is it that everything is that potential as well? You've got a potential to choose one path or another. You've got a potential to respond in one way or another. You've got a potential just to say, do you know what? Nah, that's not for me.
Mm.
But it's remembering that those potentials, it's a choice whether you take the potential and do something with it. You acknowledge the potential and choose that's not for me and go somewhere else.
The other thing is, though, what other people's idea of what your potential should be. The should word is coming in. The should word is coming in. Because
Oh, but we stay
there are
away
a
from
lot
the
of,
should word.
I
But
know
then
it.
your potential was to go and do admin and office studies, was it not, at one point?
Who?
You, when you decided you
No.
weren't doing that. But that's what we have
Oh,
had
the
conversations
secretarial
before
thing. The secretarial
where
thing.
your school
Yes,
wanted you
yes.
to go and do
But
those because they thought that was your potential path.
I was taking my life in my hands not doing that. You don't believe. I mean, my dash,
Oh, we're
my
aware.
dates on either side of my dash could have been severely shortened by taking that road.
All to avoid a secretarial course. Yeah.
Oh,
But again, that to me, that was a significant perspective in your choices.
Mm.
I really don't want to do that. I'm going to find anything else instead, even if it is life limiting and dangerous or whatever else, because it's better than this choice.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the point I was making as well. It's a case of there are so many people who, because, and we were kind of alluding to it earlier before we started recording, because one person cannot envisage, cannot empathize, cannot understand, because they would be too afraid to do it that way or to choose that thing, that they must protect you, and actually what they're doing is protecting themselves. They're protecting their idea of what is right by making you fall into line, which is how we get domesticated in the first place, into believing things that we can and cannot do.
And from that, then going back to last month's conversation about putting the mask on to appease other people. And I was working with a client this morning that it was all about that I'm putting everybody else's needs above my own. But actually what I'm doing is I'm doing it in such a way that's making them not able to make their own choices because I'm making the choices for them. So there's a really interesting dichotomy with that, and the fact that they thought they were doing the right thing to protect everybody else, but then they weren't protecting themselves. And then they were changing the agency of the other person. So just because you think it's the right thing to do, or you think you're protecting somebody, it's the oxygen mask first. We've got to look at what is right for us. Because once we've got the oxygen mask on, we can breathe. We can then make the decisions. We can then choose what works for us. We can choose the right path for us right now. Might be a different path tomorrow, but for right now, you need to have that awareness and the oxygen going into your system to be able to make that informed choice.
Comes down to expectations again, though, particularly, Mary, I would suspect with you in your job, their expectations of what they, here's what you could have won kind of thing. Because, you've worked like this. There's a big change in the job market.
Huge changes, but what's really interesting is this word of I should, the I should, and trying to get them to just take that breather to say, but did you like the job you were doing for the last 20 years? And do you want to actually do it for another 20? Yes, I know you were very good at it, but do you actually want to do it for the next 20 years? Or do you want to do something that's a bit different, that's a change, because the nature of jobs are changing. So it's quite interesting how much the shoulds and other people's expectations impact like little bullets or little arrows onto our dash, because we take in an awful lot of what other people are saying to us. And yes, sometimes the reality of, I have this massive mortgage, I made financial decisions based on an income. Yes, I'd love right now to go off and live in a boat and sail around the world, but I do have a mortgage and I do have kids who have to get to college and I do need to pay for them. So, there's
and this week I can't afford to refuel the boat.
And this week I can't.
Buy a sail.
So
put a sail up.
Yeah, sometimes people's sense of the expectations on them, they can be hugely impactful and powerful. And so even getting them to just to check in and say, is that a choice you actually want to continue to make, can be enough to say, I'm recognizing that it's not ideal, but I'm choosing to still make that decision, and I'll put other focuses elsewhere. So you very much have to listen and hear and be ready to hear people, but it's trying to find meaningful pieces to their dash. So which pieces are
Yeah.
going to give them the meaning and purpose for themselves? But it's not always oh well, I hate my job, so I'll walk away. When you have, say, are married, the sole breadwinner with 3 or 4 kids, sometimes your sense of responsibility impacts hugely. It's not always an easy answer. Oh, I'll just go away and abandon the world and go off.
Although there is the other one that is with expectations. We don't actually tell people about them that much. It's an assumed situation where you assume that someone has the expectation that this is what's going to happen in their life. And then occasionally you might get a very, very short, sharp shock when you realise that that's not what they expected at all. And they've just gone along with you because they thought that's what you wanted to do.
But
I'm
then
just a
where
fan
have
of
you
have
got
the
your
conversation.
where have you got your expectation from? Is it an assumption?
Well,
Where's
usually
it
we get
come
our
from?
expectations from our parents and their parents' parents and parents and parents' parents. It's an ancestral kind of thing that comes down. We are the kind of people who do this way. We've always done this job. You know, we've always had doctors in our family, so you will be a doctor. We've always had nurses in our family, so you will be a nurse. I mean, that conversation came up the other day. They had someone tip me a wink at a table at a birthday party and say, "Ah, yes, she's gone into the family business, theatre nurse." And I was like, did she want to? Did anybody ask her? Do you really, really want to do that? Or do you think that that's what's going to make people respect you more or love you more or be
Accept
proud of
you.
you more, you know? I mean, there's a whole lot of, it's like pulling up the rock. Who knows what you're going to find underneath when you start fiddling around in there. So it's fascinating because it's about the choice menu again. So you go into a place and you open the menu and it's like 3 pages long, and you think you have a load of choice, but the only choice you've got is what the guy in the kitchen bought off the market that day, and the only choice that they had was what was available at the market that day, and all the choice that the market had was what was actually ripe and growing at that time in the day or caught. So the choices start to get a little bit limited. Unless we go beyond and above them.
It is. Yeah. Well, and I think that we also we limit, and I know we've talked about this before, but we limit so much because our mind decides that something is good or bad, right or wrong, and we don't want the things that we've labeled as bad or sad or unhappy or whatever. We want these other things in our experience, but if we're able to, sorry about the dogs, if we're able to recognize that we don't have to hold that kind of judgment within us, then we can be intentional. If I'm making the choice that this is the thing that I'm going to do, even if it's not necessarily, as Mary was saying, like, I'm going to go to work, I'm going to pay the bills, I'm going to send my kids to school, I'm going to do all of that, but I'm intentionally deciding that that's what I'm going to prioritize in my experience, then I want to live that narrative through empowerment, not through disempowerment of, but I can't go on my boat trip and I can't go travel the world and I can't go do all of these other things, right? Like we get to decide what our dash means to us all the way through every time we make an intentional decision that we want to move in a certain direction.
And it's interesting, isn't it, that the dash is actually a genealogical tree. Because if you look behind the dash, between the birth and death, there are records and memories and things that go beyond that small thing that's slacked into a gravestone somewhere or on a piece of paper. That there are whole personalities and lives and choices and ways of being and shoulds and shouldn'ts and coulds and couldn'ts that are held within that small, small thing. It's almost like a quantum leap to a certain extent. And I'm going off on one again. So, take me out here, Angela. Where are we going?
Is that where I'm supposed to say, oh boy? Or is that going too far into your Quantum Leap TV show?
Eh?
Obviously not where your mind went. That's fine.
Oh, no. I've just got your reference. Yeah, I never really watched it. But there you
That's all
go.
good. So the other thought is you were talking about the dashes, and then thinking about is there an element of broken dashes where maybe the break in the dashes where you then pivoted as Mary's clients are doing, or where you've made that complete decision to go and do something different. What do we do with those parts? Or does it all just look as if it's one seamless straight line?
I think that's a really interesting point, because I don't think, I know, if we take the image of the headstone and the dash and the single dash, nobody's life is a single dash. I'm sorry, we're multiple dashes layered upon layer upon layer upon layer. And I loved the fact, Jennifer, who you're talking about, is, you might decide that, yeah, well, like I might want to sail the boat, but I'm going to be a responsible adult, and I'm going to do some adulting, and I'm going to actually financially secure life for my children and their education and all that sort of stuff. But when we move to that intentionality of, even though I'm not saying I should do it, when we actually change it from I have to do it to I'm choosing to do that, we then give ourselves the freedom to also choose to do other things that feed and nurture our soul and our inner sense of who we are, which are other parts of the dash, but they're just different. They're just, yes, they're integrated at one level, but they're separate as well. But I think that idea of using intentionality, of choosing to do things, and of the choices we make matter, because what happens is that when we actually become much more intentional about our choices, we then actually have a happier life, because we're more grounded in ourselves and more confident and secure in ourselves that we're actually living our dash. I have a wonderful friend who's in her 80s these days, and she still loves to go horse racing and go to sporting events, despite needing to be, kind of have a medical card for her driving and a, limited mobility. But she has a zest. She isn't just being alive. She has a zest for living, and she is fighting to maintain that zest for living at all costs and at all times. And I think when people have that dash where I'm living my life to the fullest of my capability, whatever the external circumstances, that intentionality of making those choices is central to that. So I like the idea of getting much more intentional about the choices I make.
I kind of like that little idea of when you get either a piece of cloth or a piece of paper, a bag of some kind, and it's got the little dashes with the scissor picture on it. And it says cut along the dotted line, but it's actually a dashed line. And you kind of put the scissors in, and it kind of just goes like that, and then opens up a whole something or other that's underneath. And you're thinking, ooh, I didn't know that was there. Or that was a nice surprise. Or it was exactly as you expected it to be. And there is that idea of changing where the dash goes. Because we were talking a little while ago again about the map is not the territory. But when you look at the maps, there are some roads that are nice and straight and they go, or they take you somewhere from A to B. But then there's these little dashes that go off into the wilderness somewhere. And it's kind of, ooh, I wonder where that would take you. I wonder what would happen there.
Or what are we going to see along that journey?
Yeah, what are you going to see along that journey? What are you going to experience? And by doing that, then it kind of colours everything else that's going on and where you will put your foot next, where you will choose to step next. I mean, I came back to London and I remember consciously thinking, well, that's me, I'm an adult now. I've grown up. Because I've left the dream behind. I've left the going from place to place and trying to very hard to stay there without the support that I would need to stay there, like a job, proper job, and the ability to pay rent and stuff like that through this job. So then I had to come back, but coming back, it was like reintegrating into the other dash, the other part of the dash, that was the part that bridged both of them, the animals. Didn't matter what I was doing, I was still doing that. So it was okay. I was just doing it in a different language. The one I was born into again. So it's one of those things that you sometimes the dashes take you in a kind of circle. You circle back into a place. I don't know, did I just throw myself into
dashes?
Yes, but you get them in sewing patterns. Sew here, little dash here, little dash there. And, you know, a sewing thread is a series of little dashes. So cut that cloth to fit. I think that's what we do though, isn't it? We kind of follow a pattern in life and then we kind of cut the cloth to fit. Somehow.
And we might not always be following the same pattern, and we might have turned the page and we're following a different pattern, and then we go back 3 pages and it's somebody else's pattern. And
yeah, then we end up with Carnaby Street in a second-hand shop all in one.
Well, what I was thinking, what the beauty of it is that we're constantly evolving and changing and choosing. And as long as we remember, we can keep turning the page or picking up a different pattern. And it might not work out, but it might.
I'm trying to remember the kind of series where we think that we're making a different choice, but we're actually making the same decision again and again and again. And we're kind of treading water to a certain extent. And we sometimes don't even realise that we're stuck because it could be like bad relationships or anything like that. I keep thinking of Sharon Osbourne when I say this. But it's like you get a little box of this stuff. And it's all wrapped up in these beautiful little blue boxes with the beautiful ribbons and all the rest. But it's still the same SH-T in the middle. And somehow we don't recognise it because we can't smell it. We got to open up that box and find it again and again and again, because it looks like a something novel and nice. There's something going on with that.
Conditioning, right? It comes back to the things that we, through either, as you were saying earlier, our families, our societies, the culture in which we grow up, the friends that we have, all of that, the conditioning and the shoulds. I don't know that we are always conscientious of that in our experience. And so we get caught up in repeating the patterns until that observer part of us is able to go, oh, wait a minute. I'm able to see what's happening here. We can take that step back. And now all of the sudden there's yet another dash that shows up where we go, ooh, I can pause here for a moment and then decide which way I want to go. Do I want to continue to accept the same things, the same patterns, the same way that I've been navigating this situation, or do I want to do something different?
And I think in that situation, it's like walking along the path that Leslie's talked about with that dotted line path. Unless you look up and look around, the only thing you're going to see in front of you is a path. So you may have walked past the same tree 4 times. You may have the same house in the distance and it's never getting closer, it's never getting further away. But unless you actually look up and decide, I'm now going to change course and walk towards that house, you're going to still continue plodding along on that same path. And I think it is really important, as I think, I'm assuming, Jennifer, you're looking to, is look up. Lift your head up and have a look and see what's happening. Take stock. Because it might be that we've just gone into automatic pilot and every day is the same, and it's wake up, eat, work, sleep, repeat. And it is just that constant cycle that never changes and every day looks the same. And unless you do take that second to look up and decide, is this what I want? And maybe it is. Maybe you want to have an extra meal, or you want to do a walk before you go to work, or you want to see friends or do something else or have a holiday. But you need to have that look up and to take stock of what you've already got and decide if it's right for you.
I think we tend to forget that we're adaptable, that we are so. I mean, we're the top of the food chain for a reason. We survive, we adapt, we go into locations where even some animals have more sense than to go into, but we kind of have evolved into, yeah, we can deal with that. We can deal with that. But then we forget to remember that because we get cozy in a little familiarity zone. And it could be actually conditioning into a 20-25 year job where you knew exactly what to expect when you go up at 9 o'clock in the morning and you leave at 5 o'clock at night or whatever, and 5 days a week, and then every weekend you do the same things.
And you take the same drive to work, and you
Yeah.
stop at the same coffee shop, and you have the same packed lunch, and nothing changes unless you pay attention.
Yeah, and then sometimes when you're not paying attention, it does, like, Mary deals with it all the time. These people are like, what the hell happened? Where did my life go? How can I go further on? I don't want to be in the garden doing things. I want to be out doing things. I want to do my job. But
But I just want to flag lots of people when they're faced with redundancy in their 40s and 50s. Can I just get another job the same as before? I'm perfectly happy. I just want the same thing again. They actually don't want to go there at all.
mm,
So some question, but some actually no. Can I just have a little bit more of the same in another company? Don't care what it is. Just get me in there again. So it's a fascinating how some people take something like a redundancy to have a massive overhaul and rethink of their lives. Other people just want get me back in the treadmill as fast as you can because I want to stay doing exactly what I was doing. And sometimes I think, you know what, they must be happy. And
It's
some of
interesting.
them, it's what I do. I just, that's what I love to do. It's fine. I don't want, they just do not want to go into the self-reflection part at all. They just want to get up there, get another
And
job.
my first redundancy was very similar. So I just need to get another job because I couldn't see any further. I couldn't see a different way of doing what I was doing. My pattern was, and because all my family did the same thing, I get up, I go to work, I bring money in, and I come home at the end of the night. And it is just that constant cycle of, well, that's all I know. I don't know any different way of being. And I'd have to rethink it. And I've trained all these years at university. I've trained to get to the level I'm at. I've worked really hard to get to the level I'm at. Just because that company is changing their structure and I don't need to be there anymore, I'm going to go to another place that's got a similar structure and do the same thing again. And that's okay, and I'll cope with that. And it is that from that perspective, I really enjoyed my holidays. So I went and did my holidays, and I had evening classes, and I had friends, and all the different things I wanted to do alongside that work piece. But then the second time it happened to me, I had a very different shift and did something very differently. There are times that I now think, I wish I'd just gone back and got another one of those jobs because that was easy. But you never know what's going to happen until you take that step. And there's nothing stopping me from ever going back and saying, do you know what? No, I'm going to go back to do what I was doing before because actually I was happier there. Sometimes you just need to take that little pause to try something different, to have a play, to have an explore. If it doesn't work, go back to where you were before. Nothing's permanent.
And a dash is never permanent.
no.
Dashes are almost, we almost process a dash as if there's a lack of permanence to it. So yeah, the dash is not permanent.
Yeah, it joins two words together, but it doesn't have to, because the words are independent of the dash at any
Yeah,
other
they
time.
stand alone on separately, all by themselves.
Yeah, they can dash off, do things. Maybe there's a world somewhere, a universe of dashies that are just sitting waiting to be dashed off.
Sometimes your brain quite scares me.
Well, it kind of It disturbs me slightly sometimes too, because I never know where it's going to go.
I feel
And of course, and I have very little in the way of filter, so what goes in there comes out again. But it's true. We there are some people who, and I think this comes into a relativity situation, who manage, and you're one of them, manage to put so much in a day without actually seeming to do very much at all. And I scrap around looking for every second, going, oh, where's it gone? How's it? Wait, what? Oh, what's going on? And sometimes I lose my dashes because of that. But at the same time, I've never realised, it might be ADHD, who knows, that the organisation of your brain and how you organise your day can still have a multitude of different things in it. It doesn't have to be a routine kind of, this is when this happens, this is when that happens, and then you stay in that lane all the time. Whereas, I mean, you were talking about you go there, you do this, you're always reading something. Where do you get the time to do that?
I think what I do is I've swapped all those bullet points out of my big list of things for the little dashes. My main little dots. I'll go for dashes, thanks. I'll do it
Okay.
all.
Right.
And burn myself out in the process sometimes, but I'm going to do it all. Get bored otherwise, right?
Well, yeah. Yeah. I was away recently, and interestingly enough, it was a bit of a rest, but unfortunately, it also was a bit full on. I was in Italy and I was staying with an Italian lady, and oh my good grief, that woman does 15 million things at 15,000 miles an hour every single day. And it's really, really hard to keep up. It was tiring just watching her make breakfast in the morning, never mind anything else. But, I mean, also, doing that, she was also bemoaning the fact that she wasn't getting things done for herself. She was dutifully doing things for others, but not enjoying it at all. And
expectations again.
Expectations, yeah. But I think that she was putting, and we had a discussion about it, she was putting the expectations on herself more than anything else. Because nobody else really, well, it doesn't get done, it doesn't get done. What's the problem? But she needed to be needed. She needed to see things getting done the way that someone wanted them to be done, which made them happy. Because if she didn't do it the way that it was, then the whole world collapsed.
And the person that she was doing it for probably didn't have a preference. Or didn't even need it.
Well, this is it. There are preferences and there are needs. And they're not exactly always not mutually exclusive. So, you have to I'm kind of working my way around that one. But it's one of those things that when we do this and we have the Morse code that only a few people understand, because it's dots and dashes. But those dots and dashes always mean something. It's a language. So on a headstone, it's a language. It's on this date, there's a set of numbers for you. And to that date, there's the other set of numbers. Something began and something ended. Was it a true end, or was it just a dash to another situation? Who knows? Because we haven't gone to that dash yet. That's the one time that we can say that we can't actually say anything about it because we haven't been there yet. Maybe we have, some of us. Near-death experiences might count for some people. I don't know. I've had a couple myself. It was interesting. No lights. But we won't go there. And so when we're talking about what goes in between that time, and it is a time frame, it's a time frame that we're talking about. the dash has so much potential. It's got meaning, it's got fullness, it's got availability, it's got capability, it's got that little frisson of, oh, I wonder if we could go there. Let's go there. Don't know. It's a choice. You can go there and you can mither about it, you can wish it, but wishing it never usually makes it happen because it's just something that you're going to put on a shelf and think about later. That's another kind of dash. Just dash it, stick it over there. Or you can live it. And in living it, you've got to take the risks. In living it, you've got to say, yeah, I'm responsible for this decision. I'm responsible for it. And actually, it doesn't really matter what anybody else thinks because it's none of their business. And it's none of my business what they think. And until I actually voice it, vocalize it, say something about it, I'm never going to really know what the story is. Because I'm making one up all by myself. So when we go into the dashes and the dots and the cutting of the lines and the going off the map into the territory, it's an adventure. That little line between those two dates is an adventure. And we're all on it. So wouldn't it be nice if we kind of lifted our eyes sometimes and had a look to see what the countryside looked like where we are? And just what else we could do with it. And when you do, and you're a little bit, I don't know if I can do that, come and talk to one of us. Because we can help. See you later.